Hi guys, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. I have officially confused everyone. So I'm giving people time to kind of trickle over so that they can see that I'm on a different link. I don't know how I did that. I'm sorry about all the confusion there for a little bit. Thank you, Deb, for validating me. I appreciate that. Let me excuse me, let me just sign in Instagram and Twitter, and then we will be good to go. All right. Um, okay. All right. So it should be okay. I do see a few people that were chatting. I saw Elizabeth earlier. I'm just going to welcome you to the chat. I'm glad to see you. I think you were over at the other link. So I'm waiting for her to trickle over to this link. I see Deb. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you as always. I see Truth for You today. Rarely are you ever able to come on here with me. So glad to see you as well. I also see Sammy. Hi, Sammy. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. I also see Live Life. Hello and welcome. Glad you were able to come over. Thanks to Deb. I might make Deb a moderator. We'll have to see. We'll have to see about that one. I need one. So it might be you, Deb. Might be you. Dawn One, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. And yeah, I see you guys. All right. So thank God you know that I'm over here. Hello, Keisha, Monique. Welcome. Glad to see you. Main House. Hello. Hope you're having a good Saturday. Mike Smith. Hello and welcome. I'm going to come back to your comment because we're going to get on this pretty soon. B and Critter and Yanni Body TV. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Elizabeth, you finally made it over. Yeah, I know, Deb. You know, okay, let me show you what Deb is saying. Hold on. I know, right? But you already moderate. You just don't have the label yet. So yes, Mike, you're welcome. Glad to see you. Okay, let me preface this conversation while I wait on others to come on over from the other link. Now, let me go back to Mike. So, Mike says something interesting, and I've been getting so many comments since I brought up the silent treatment last week. Here's what Mike says. He says the silent treatment seems to be the narcissist's favorite tactics, also gaslighting. So yes and no. So let me break this down a little bit and then let me introduce you to the topic as well. The silent treatment is an interesting phenomenon and here's why. It is not always utilized by people who are narcissistic, people who have some dark triad traits or the dark empaths we talk about sometimes. The silent treatment is also just not something that sociopaths use to kind of block you out. Sometimes those of us who are very relational and interconnected and healthy in our relationships, we use the silent treatment because it does a couple of things for us, right? It has a function that is useful in the moment. And for a lot of people who are, what's the word I want to use here, who are a little bit uninformed about how to have a healthy relationship or how to manage a problem, a confrontation, a disagreement, the silent treatment is something that is used. And I think a lot of people use it and they don't realize they're using it, or they use it because that's the only thing that has worked for them, or they use the silent treatment because it makes the most sense to them. Somebody asked me a fantastic question last week. They said to me, Tamara, is the silent treatment ghosting? And I would say yes and no to that as well. So I'm going to address all these things in tonight's live chat. I also want to address family disownment. Family disownment, because family disownment is also the silent treatment, but it's a little bit of a twist to that one. So I think you're going to enjoy some of these things that I'm going to bring up in tonight's live chat. There's also something known as cyber ostracism. Cyber ostracism. I learned that one. That's a new one for me. And basically, it's the silent treatment through social media, through Facebook posts, through Twitter, through Snapchat, through text messages on a phone. So I'm going to explain all of this to you as we go along in tonight's live chat. Now, let me also say too that the silent treatment is in layman terms, in everyday terms, we call it the silent treatment, but it's technically the psychology of social isolation. That's really what we're talking about here, not just simply the silent treatment, but at the core of the silent treatment is the psychology of social isolation. And that's what we're dealing with here. And when you really pick and pull apart some of the research, and not just the Google search, but some of the actual articles and studies that have been done on social isolation, then you begin to, I think, really recognize what the silent treatment can actually do to you. And if you know, you guys are coming from very unhealthy, toxic and traumatic family dynamics, the silent treatment was most likely used on you. So I'm going to highlight also as we go along 11 ways that the silent treatment or social isolation may have impacted you over time. So that's what we're going to talk about in tonight's live chat. I hope to wrap up around 7:50, 6:50ish. I'm sorry, Eastern time. So let's see. I'll try my hardest to wrap up at 6:50. Let me go back to the chat box and just see what you guys are saying. Give myself a little bit of a break here, and then we're going to jump in. I'm going to tell you what's going on in your brain when a family member or somebody who's close to you utilizes the silent treatment. There's things that actually happens in your brain. So we're going to get to that. I see Elizabeth. Okay, I think I've welcomed you already, but let me make sure. So, hi Tam, I'm here. Yeah, glad to see you. I don't know. YouTube perplexes me. That's. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to leave it at that. It perplexes me. It does. All right, let me go to Mike really quickly. Mike Smith says, "Has anyone ever gaslighting or silent treatment from a whole group of peers?" I think you're asking me, has anyone ever gaslit or used the silent treatment from a whole group of peers? I have. It's really damaging to my health. Yes. So let me give you an example of this one. So let's say, for example, your mother and your father are very unhealthy in how they communicate in their marriage, and they're even more unhealthy in how they communicate with you. And in the process of a conflict or some kind of a disagreement, your mom and your father decide to completely stop calling you. They call you every week. They stop calling you. They stop sending you text messages. They stop, trying to get you to respond to them over social media. They just completely cut off all communication with you. And a lot of you have probably dealt with this, right? So here's how it usually goes in toxic families. The mother and the father stop talking to you. You know something's wrong, right? Because they're quiet. They're too quiet. So something's wrong. So then what happens? Well, cousin Naomi then starts to kind of back away from you, Uncle BB begins to only send you maybe one text message and he doesn't talk to you for the rest of the week. You also notice your nephew and your niece has stopped calling you and stopped sending you text messages. And there you are sitting there in the middle of your family trying to figure out why nobody's contacting you. And for the most part, it's because of who started the silent treatment. So this is to your question, Mike Smith. It started the silent treatment, your parents, mom and dad, for example. And so now everybody else in the family is kind of following suit. And so that's how that typically goes. Now, let's say, for example, you are in a friend group, you know, and there is somebody that is in that friend group who has gotten into a confrontation with you. You guys have stopped talking. Something's going on between the two of you, It may not quite look like it on the external or on the surface, but underneath, you guys aren't getting along. Well, then you may realize or recognize after a certain number of days or hours that now everybody in that friend group has stopped texting you and calling you and talking to you and sharing things with you. And so that is the silent treatment in a group context or in a family context. And it can actually be very detrimental because here's what happens. It goes from level 1, which is silent treatment, to level 5, which is social isolation. And if you continue to feel socially isolated and rejected, then let's say, for example, we're going to bump up to number 10, which is disownment. And so now it's got much bigger than just the silent treatment, especially if the person who started the silent treatment, and this is backed by research, if the person who started the silent treatment has a personality disorder, is very angry and has poor emotion regulation, is manipulative and triangulating, or is very calculating or just completely evil, right? They do things under the surface to cause disruption to your life. And so, research suggests that if somebody like that, utilizes the silent treatment and then starts to gossip or starts to spread these negative vibes about you to other people, then yeah, you can have a group of people or a family context come against you. And so now you're getting the silent treatment from everybody. So, Mike, thank you for that. That was I think, a great question. And a lot of people fail to realize that when the silent treatment starts to include other people, then it no longer is the silent treatment. Now it's something completely different, and it can feel very harassing. So thank you for that, Mike Smith. That was a great question. I like what Deb says here. She says, no contact. No contact is another way to give the silent treatment. I believe it's the ultimate boundary for stop messing with me. Absolutely. And sometimes that no contact silent treatment boundary is needed. It's figuring out why you're using it and if you're using it in a way that is healthy. You really need to figure that out, because if it's a negative kind of silent treatment where you completely shut down, there's a psychological term known as emotional flooding. Emotional flooding. And that's when you get so many negative emotions, or you get so much emotion that you feel overwhelmed that you begin to shut down. And so that shutdown period can be considered the silent treatment, because maybe you can completely shut down, and now you're at a place where you don't have anything to say, right? So, that's not really an evil way to utilize the silent treatment. At that point, you're saying, I'm putting up a boundary. I'm putting up a boundary because I can't, I'm not, and I won't. And so that's what you're doing. So, Deb, sometimes it is a no contact way, and it can be healthy because it is the ultimate boundary. And sometimes you have to utilize that. Main House says exclusion. Yes, social isolation. Yeah, sometimes the silent treatment is just that. It is not putting up a boundary. It is not saying I can't talk to you right now. It is saying I'm completely excluding you from the environment. Let me just say here, Main House, since you've brought this up, I'm going to delve into some of the content here and I'll come back to the chat box. Let me just say that the silent treatment has neurological bases to it. Our research, and I'm going to make sure to put this in the description box for you. Our research suggests that neurologically, the brain over time, if it experiences too much social isolation and too much exclusion from a social atmosphere or arena, and we might as well throw families into that as well, that it really makes for a difficult development or morphology, if you will, or development of the brain. And the brain starts to kind of, what's the word? I don't want to say decay over time, but it has a difficult time developing new brain cells. And so you guys remember in I'm going to say maybe like 3 or 4 live chats in the past, I talked about what's known as the FMRI, and that's the functional magnetic resonance imaging. That's the MRI that you can get if you have a neurological condition and there's questions. But a functional MRI is a wonderful research tool, because what happens is when you are put into a functional MRI, anything that you are thinking or processing or looking at can then be found on a screen, and there's different parts of the brain that's activated. So when you are socially isolated, there are different parts of the brain that's activated, and the emotional centers of the brain gets activated. Remember that amygdala, that almond-sized structure in the middle of the brain? That's the thing that creates our emotional memories, right? That emotional memory of last week, I had a conversation with my cousin and it was wonderful. That's an emotional memory. Or I remember when I went to Disneyland with my parents and I just had a great time. That's an emotional memory. The amygdala forms those emotional memories. That's the part of the brain that tends to be impacted when you are socially isolated. When you receive the silent treatment, the emotional centers of the brain are then being activated. And that's interesting to actually see on a functional MRI. So I figured I would jump into that since Main House brought that up. So social exclusion, the silent treatment, isolation, all of that activates the emotional centers of the brain. You also, I probably should mention this as well, that social ostracism, which is kind of where a group of people or maybe two or three people kind of push you out, and there's no way for you to get back in because they completely pushed you out of the circle. So that social ostracism also leads to activated parts of the brain that has a lot to do with our emotional centers. Okay, so let me go back to the chat box. I wanted to just kind of take that road for a second there. Thank you, Main House. That was a wonderful comment. Jajets, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says colors can also be a form of silent treatment. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up. So I have a 17-year-old boy that comes to my practice, and we talk. So he's my client and we talk all the time. That is my buddy, okay? For lack of a clinical term, we just get along like this. And he's like a long lost nephew and I'm like a long lost aunt to him. We talk about clothing all the time. He tries to pick my over the age of 35 brain to see where I'm at. And he teaches me new things about fashion and design. So here's what he said to me on Monday. He's like, Miss Tamara, I think I contribute a lot to my social isolation. And I said, well, how's that? You're a pretty sociable kid. And he's like, not really. I wear black clothes all the time. I make sure that I, dye my hair as black as I can get it. He's like, I don't wear any colors ever. He said, everything on me is black, Miss Tamara. Can't you see that? Like I have black shoes, I have black pants, black t-shirt. And, when I really thought about it and I looked at him, I'm thinking, he's right. So maybe, Jajets, there's something to that because he doesn't want to be seen, right? He kind of puts a block up to the world, and he does that by dressing in all black. I never see that child in color clothes. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know, Jajets. There might be something to that. Live Life says, I've used the silent treatment with difficult people as a result of shutting down emotionally. Yeah. So that's that emotional flooding. She goes on to say, it's hard for me to articulate how I feel when I'm upset and the other person keeps talking over me. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime I have a really complicated session in office, I see children and teens go through this all the time. Mom and dad are fussing at them and they just feel ganged upon. And there I am, on my computer, typing up notes and listening. And, I look at the child sometimes and I think, this is not a good setup. The child is feeling alone and I don't want that. So what happens in those sessions is sometimes the child will shut down because of the emotional flooding. They've got too much coming in. It's like sensory overload and they can't handle it. So maybe that's what you're going through. Live Life. Silent treatment, I wouldn't say is necessarily what you use with difficult people. I would give that another term. Maybe you just put up a barrier, maybe you put up a boundary. I think the silent treatment has too broad of a definition. A lot of people consider not talking to be the silent treatment, and that's really not it. The silent treatment is social isolation. It has the purpose of stopping somebody, but that stopping of somebody can really do harm and damage. So I would say, Live Life, that it isn't the silent treatment. It most likely is a firm boundary because you can't take anymore. I'm glad you mentioned that. Elizabeth says, I absolutely ghost men whose behavior is dangerous to me. I don't blame you for that. I don't blame you for that. You don't owe them an explanation if they're dangerous, right? And I feel them too entitled. Yeah. I think there is no use to explain to them why they wouldn't understand. Right. I get your sentence, Elizabeth. I get you. Okay. So I agree with that. So is ghosting the silent treatment? Yes and no. I think the silent treatment can be ghosting in some ways. To me, ghosting is cruel, but sometimes you have to. And I'm guilty in my own personal life of connecting with people who seem to be okay at first, and the minute I see something in you that threatens me, right? Either my safety, my mental health, my emotional health, or if you've done something to betray me, I will cut you off like that in a minute, because you know as well as I know that that wasn't right of you. And so if that's the dynamic between us, why should I pick up the phone and tell you I want nothing to do with you? I'm just going to show you. My grandma used to say this all the time. I can show you better than I can tell you. I can show you better than I can tell you. And I used to look at my grandmother and think, what? But she's right, right? Sometimes you do have to use that silent treatment and use ghosting as a means to protect yourself. It seems harsh, but some circumstances, there's nothing you can do but just walk away. So I agree with you, Elizabeth. It's a rough call. It's a rough call. Critter says, love this. Hi, Critter. I don't know if I welcomed you. I don't remember. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Says, I isolated at home and sent to kitty jail a bunch. So isolated with only narc mom. So let me comment on that as well. The silent treatment, or having to be socially isolated with a person who is unhealthy, to me is the most dangerous thing, because remember earlier I mentioned the neurological component of social isolation. So you have the neurological piece of who you are being impacted negatively just by being isolated in and of itself. And then you add to that fire the fact that you're isolated with somebody who's unhealthy for you. That's really difficult. That's difficult. That's beyond difficult, you know? And so I can explain that as we go along in this live chat. At least I'll try to focus on that a little bit. Okay, let me get back into the content, guys, because we have quite a bit to cover in tonight's live chat. Let me just talk about family disownment for a second. I had a client last week. She said her family disowned her. And the way that her family disowned her was by giving her the silent treatment for an entire year. She had a blow up with her mom. Mom went to her husband, who is my client's stepdad. Mom went to her husband and told the husband that, she doesn't deserve to have a mom like me. The list goes on. Okay. The stepdad then turned on my client, including the mother, and then the mother and the stepdad then went to her brother, who then also became upset with my client. And thankfully they were able to, kind of patch things up, and she brought her brother into session, and he explained to her right in the session that mom has been running through the family saying that you've done A, B, and C, and everybody is now deciding to stay away from you. So she had at least 12 family members who was giving her the silent treatment for an entire year. And I don't even think they're talking now. It might be kind of fleeting. It's off and on. But her family disownment, which started with her mother and her stepdad, then trickled down to other family members who also gave her the silent treatment. And that's an ugly thing. So here's what happens with the silent treatment and family disownment. One, the individual who started the silent treatment and gets the ball rolling to other family members, they then begin to cling to who is left in the family. They've pushed you out of the family, right? Because you're the offending person. Excuse me. And so because you're the offender, right, you're pushed out of the family. And now, let me get some tea, guys. Okay, hold on. Excuse me. Can you believe I'm trying to get a sore throat again? I swear it's the babies that come to me for therapy. I'm always hugging them or something. And so I can't get better. And I think it's them. But anyway, back on track here. So her family has kind of all disowned her in a sense, right? And so here's what the mother and the stepdad are doing. They're now clinging to the family members that are left behind. And what that's doing is creating a family clique, or what research calls a family enmeshment or alliance. Everybody in the family now is kind of like this, and they're too much like this, because it's almost like they have all band together against this individual. So there's manipulation, there's triangulation, there's bad things being spread about my client, there's cold and callous behaviors being shown towards her. And thankfully, her brother kind of stepped out of that and said, I'm not going to do this to you. But her family has basically disowned her. And it started with the silent treatment. So that's why when you guys say, I'm, giving the silent treatment, I'm trying to encourage you maybe not to use that word, because I don't think it's the silent treatment. It might be you just saying, I can't do this. I'm putting up a boundary. You're probably doing something that's healthy. The silent treatment can very easily morph into something much more evil and dark and problematic. So, family disownment is 100% a form of the silent treatment. Now, another thing that is a form of the silent treatment is family estrangement. And that's basically when you decide to, instead of being connected with your family, you decide to go over there because it's safer, it's easier, it's less complicated. You need space, you need room to think and live your life. You need freedom from the entrapment of your family. Family estrangement is also known as the silent treatment. You're saying, I'm not going to make this work with you because I'm over it. I've tried. I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to go over here and create a life over here. For me, that is sometimes a healthy form of the silent treatment. You're putting up a boundary, if that makes sense. So keep in mind, guys, family estrangement and family disownment is a form of the silent treatment. Okay. Now, let me give you some information on Maslow. Are you guys familiar with Abraham Maslow? He's the one who created and he's the mastermind behind the hierarchy of needs. Okay. And I'm not going to break this down too much because we have other things to go through. But let me just say that in terms of the silent treatment, what happens to you is you kind of get boxed into a corner where you have no ability to be heard. You have no room to discuss anything. You have no room to share your thoughts and your feelings about anything. And you have no space to process or reflect upon what started the whole silent treatment. Because when someone uses the silent treatment against you, they're actually stonewalling. They're saying, I'm not going to talk to you. This is as far as I'm going to go. There may also be a form of gaslighting in there as well, right? You think something's wrong, but nothing's wrong here. And then they proceed to give you the silent treatment, right? So those are two unhealthy forms of the silent treatment, stonewalling and gaslighting. So what Abraham Maslow has shown us in his research is that families, individuals, we have to have 5 essential pieces in our lives to be 100% fulfilled. I think there's more to this, but I'm going to give you what he says. So Abraham Maslow says this: we need our physiological needs met, right? So that's kind of like food, sleep, intimacy, that kind of thing. Number 2, we need our safety needs met, which is, feeling feeling protected, feeling safe, not having the burden of fear on you all the time, and even feeling safe within your relationships. The third stage, he says, we need to live and to survive is love and belonging. Love and belonging. And if you don't have that, according to Abraham Maslow, life is going to be a little bit difficult. And so when you are facing the silent treatment or stonewalling, what are you missing? You're missing that love and belonging. He also says for stage number 3, we need esteem, confidence, we need respect, achievements, things like that. You're not getting respect when you're given the silent treatment. You're being silenced, right? And number 5 is that self-actualization that he says that we need, which is kind of like, that higher order thinking, that very highly intellectual thinking, morality and creativity, that's self-actualization. So Maslow says, and this is the point I want to drive home, Maslow says if we don't have love and belonging, then we miss a very important piece of the puzzle. And so the silent treatment and social isolation within your family takes that from you, that love and that belonging. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I was like blah, 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 blah the whole time. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. When you don't have what Abraham Maslow says you need, that love and belonging, then life is going to be a little bit difficult for you because it's an essential need. It's a part of that pyramid. You guys have probably seen that pyramid. I can't do it with my fingers. You probably have seen Abraham Maslow's pyramid. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm going to show this to you really quickly. Then I'm going to go to the chat box. Because, hold on, I'm doing a really quick Google search. Okay, here we go. So this is what it looks like. I don't know if I can. I'm going to try my very best to be technologically astute. Let me see if I can get this. Is it gonna focus? Come on, camera. Nope, I don't think so. It's too blurry. What I'll do is I'll put this in the description box for you, so that you can kind of see his theory on this, and so that you can see each stage from 1 to 5. Okay. All right. I'm going to go to the chat box, see what you guys are saying, give myself a little bit of a break here. Mike Smith says, been experiencing the silent treatment since 2013. Yes, I would say if you've been experiencing the silent treatment since 2013, it is no longer just the silent treatment. It is now family disownment or family estrangement. So I'm glad you brought that up. So that's where I want you guys to start thinking about how excuse me, how the silent treatment kind of transforms over time. So it may have started as the silent treatment, but now it is continuing from 2013 to now. That's family disownment or family estrangement, to say the least. Okay, let me look at Deb here. Deb says, can you find a new group of peers, new friend group, moving into a new city at Mike? Yeah, that's a great question. So let me kind of piggyback off that, Deb, for a second here. If you're experiencing social isolation and the silent treatment from people close in your world, you can replace that person with somebody else. I often encourage my clients to do that. If they are experiencing the silent treatment from a family member, a friend, I tell them make really good use of that time and do it away from the person that's giving you the silent treatment, because you don't deserve that, right? It's stonewalling. It's a little bit humiliating to give somebody the silent treatment, right? So I often tell my clients, go do your own thing, right? If you have to replace that person while they are pouting over there, replace that person with somebody healthier and go do what you have to do to be a healthier person. And so some of my clients do that because you can't break that wall. Once somebody puts up this stone wall, right? Hence the term stonewalling. It's really hard to break through that. And so there's nothing you can do, and you don't want to sit and wallow in that anxiety. So you do have to move and do something else. So thank you for that, Deb. I agree. Reach out. Hi, Jessica J. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Says, hi, Tamara. I'm a bit late. Sorry. No worries. You're not late. You're not late at all. John Tracy, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, schizoid, perhaps use silent treatment. Well, a schizoid individual is a personality disorder. It's not schizophrenia. A lot of people misinterpret what the schizoid is. The schizoid, the individual with the personality disorder, schizoid personality disorder, does not necessarily have a desire or a strong desire to be socially interconnected with other people. There's kind of like this underlying paranoia underneath this individual's personality. And so I don't know if they use the silent treatment, John Tracy. I don't know if they do that, but I will say that a schizoid personality or a schizoid personality disorder is less the silent treatment. It's more so I can't connect. I don't want to connect. I'm constantly paranoid. And so therefore my social relationships are minimal. That's how I would put that. Let life love you. I love that. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, yay. So glad to make it to your live. Thank you so much for that. Glad to have you. Why do families have to be so complicated and toxic? I agree. I don't know. And I think that's one of the things that pushed me into the field as a psychotherapist who is trained to treat families and family trauma and PTSD and intergenerational trauma, because it's such a topic. I think it's more of a topic than most of us think it is, right? A lot of us have instability within our families, whether that's extended or immediate. There's always something going on in families. I don't know. I wish they weren't complicated, but they are. Keisha Monique says, "This is my life." Yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that, Keisha. Keep in mind, guys, what I mentioned at the very beginning. The silent treatment is more than that. So when Keisha says, "This is my life," there's a lot going on here, because it's the psychology of social isolation. That's really the silent treatment. It's isolating you to one spot, and there's no way out of that. And so for somebody to say, "This is my life," that means it's an ongoing situation that may or may not have an ending, and that is depressing. Main house says, when it is in groups, it's triangulation. Or are you asking me, is it triangulation if it's in a group? Okay, I'm just going to take from this that's what you mean. If the silent treatment occurs in a group, it is still triangulation, because here's what's happening. You have an individual who's the victim. Whoever, maybe the group thinks that they are victimized or they are the victim, and you are the one that's creating the trouble. And so therefore they're going to show you the silent treatment and push you over there. It's that social ostracism. They're going to push you over there and keep you over there while they're over here huddled as victims with their family members or with other people that they trust, while you're over there. So, is the silent treatment that is done in a group triangulation? Yes. Because there's always, it's a triangle. It's a victim, it's a persecutor, or somebody who creates the problem, and that would be you, because they're giving you the silent treatment. And then there's a rescuer, whoever that would be. So yes, it is triangulation if it's more than three people or more than one or two people. Okay. All right, let me read Sammy. Sammy says, "I have done a lot of self isolation due to my family situation being bad. Any thoughts on this?" I don't blame you. I think there's a healthy level of self isolation that we all need to learn to use. I mean, I self isolate sometimes when I'm in my head. I need to study, I need to review something, I have a complicated case, or I need me time, or I need to do some existential spiritual introspection. Whatever the case may be, I self isolate myself. It's kind of like putting myself in a closet with all of my resources and all of my thoughts, and just kind of staying there. And sometimes that's okay. So that would be my thought on that, Sammy, that it's okay to self isolate, as long as you know when that self isolation needs to end, right? This can happen up until a certain point, and then this needs to end. So I don't think that's a bad thing. If you guys have to self isolate to protect yourself from a very traumatic, minimizing, condescending, harmful family dynamic, then that is a healthy thing, because you don't want to put yourself right in the middle of a toxic family, right? So, Sammy, those are my thoughts on that. Thanks, main house. I'm glad my examples are helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like my examples are long winded, but it's only because I want to give you guys as much as I can. So thank you for validating that. Yanni Body TV says, when we choose to stop communicating with toxic people, so we really have to tell them? Not at all. If you choose to stop communicating with toxic people, you do not have to tell them. That's why earlier, I forgot who it was, said, asked me the question, is ghosting the silent treatment? Yes, it's a form of it. And sometimes you need to use it, right? Sometimes you may have to use the silent treatment to get your point across, and then end it at some point. So am I saying that the silent treatment is 100% unhealthy? Not at all. I'm saying that it's 50% healthy, 50% toxic. You just have to figure out how to walk that line. That's the difficult piece of it, because again, the silent treatment is really the psychology of isolation. It's isolating you, and that's not healthy, right? And if somebody's using it on you, they're isolating you. They're saying, get out of my world for right now. I don't want to talk to you and I won't. And that's abusive. So it's figuring out how to walk that line. I don't think you need to call up a difficult individual and say, you know what, I'm not going to talk to you for the next year. Goodbye. Like that just doesn't add up, right? So you have to kind of walk that line. I know it's rough. Okay, let's go back to the content. You guys have so many great comments. Let's go back to the content. Let me highlight what happens to you and you when that's what I mean, you guys, when you are experiencing the silent treatment. So if somebody, a family member, whoever is doing this to you, here's what's happening to you. Research suggests that our stress hormones actually are activated by social isolation and the silent treatment. Any kind of perceived social isolation causes high blood pressure. That's number one, high blood pressure. And number two, it activates what is known as the HPA axis. You guys, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but you guys probably don't remember what it is. The HPA axis, it's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal gland, or the adrenal axis. So the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal system is the system that operates fight or flight. So when you start to perceive that you are being isolated, stonewalled, gaslit, there's some social isolation going on here. You're getting the silent treatment from someone and they refuse to talk to you. It is triggering and activating the HPA axis, so the fight or flight system. And it also has some effect on your blood pressure. It increases your blood pressure. That's the neurological piece that I mentioned at the very beginning of this live chat. So that's what happens. The other thing is you start to feel lonely, right? If somebody's socially isolating you or giving you the silent treatment, then you start to feel lonely. And so that plays into the psychology of who you are as an individual, right? And research suggests that loneliness, the silent treatment, and social isolation is a major risk factor for cognitive decline. Isn't that interesting? And when I looked at that research, which I'm going to make sure I post in the description box for you, I was pretty shocked at that. I'm like, really? So, social isolation or feeling socially ostracized, being disowned in your family, dealing with family estrangement, all of those things can become a risk factor for cognitive decline over time. You also kind of you also fold. You can fold emotionally and psychologically under the pressure of the silent treatment. The silent treatment is kind of like this, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier. It's kind of like this passive aggressive way that we are when we get upset. Some of us, I'm not passive aggressive. I'm just going to tell you I'm angry with you. But some people are way more passive aggressive, and the silent treatment is a passive aggressive maneuver. It really is. And so you can fold under that and have panic attacks. You can get stuck in your mind and begin to obsess over your last communication with that person. What did you do wrong? What did you possibly say wrong? You may even start to question if you're loved, if you were ever really loved, right? So your mind and your brain and the emotional centers of the brain goes through a lot. It goes through a lot when you are being faced with the silent treatment. Let me also say too, people who utilize the silent treatment in a way that is unhealthy, a way to harm you. What's interesting is they are exerting control not only over your emotions but over your mind. Right? They're exerting control over you. It's kind of like a power play. It's like, I'm going to stop this communication right now, and you're going to do what I want you to do, and I'm going to make you do what I want you to do by not talking to you. And then maybe you'll give me what I want. So sometimes this can be very manipulative and very much evil, depending on how it's used. Can you imagine, for example, a narcissist? Let's say your mom's a narcissist and she doesn't know how to stop you from marrying the person that you want to marry. So what does she do? She stops talking to you. She refuses to go to your wedding. She doesn't come to any of the rehearsals. She just completely drops out. How is that going to make you feel? It's probably going to make you feel terrible, right? And you're probably going to start questioning, did my mom ever love me? Does she love me? How could she do this to me? What did I do to deserve this? And your mind just can obsessively go through this over and over again. So when a person utilizes the silent treatment, they're exerting control over you. Okay, let me go to the chat box. Let's take a little bit of a break, and then I'm going to give you guys the other ways that the silent treatment can negatively impact you, and then we will wrap up. Okay, I'm just processing, guys, and I'm just reading. I like this. So, Miss BRB123, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says no contact is not the same as the silent treatment. No contact is for your own self preservation. It can be. It can be. Silent treatment is to punish. It is an abuser's tool. It can be. Yes, the silent treatment is often used by people who are not aware of what they're doing. So, most people feel like I'm putting up a boundary when the boundary is not even there. It's called the silent treatment. It's really hard for people to differentiate between the silent treatment and abusive behavior, right? Or the silent treatment and a boundary. The silent treatment is not necessarily a boundary. A boundary says, I'm going to stop you right here for a certain period of time. This is my boundary. You're crossing it, right? And you may employ a bunch of different ways or tools to do that, to accomplish that. Somebody who utilizes the silent treatment as an abusive tool is going to do the things that I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. They're going to exert control over you. They're going to push your buttons to see if they can get you to do what they want you to do, right? They're also going to put you in a state of mind that makes you feel lonely and socially ostracized and socially isolated, right? So that's the abuser's use of the silent treatment. Now, going no contact, I wouldn't say, I agree with you. I would not say that that's the silent treatment. Going no contact is literally slamming the door. I want nothing to do with you right now because you are unhealthy for me. That's the no contact. So I agree. I agree. I'm glad you pointed that out. Thank you for that. Let Life Love You says, I've gone no contact. And finally, it's not out of anger. I just realized that I don't have to be in relationship with my siblings. And thank you for these healthy conversations, Tamara. Yes, you're welcome. And thank you for that. I'm so glad that these are healthy conversations, right? Because I think there needs to be a space for people who are not having the best time in their families, right? So, excuse me. So I agree. Going no contact is sometimes a realization. You're saying, I'm closing this door for good, or I'm closing this door for 2 years or 3 years, or however long you need it closed, because you realize that this is not a healthy connection, right? So I agree with that. Hi, Kevin the Oculus. So glad to have you. Welcome. I haven't seen you in so long. It's been a while. I'm glad to see you. It's good to have you. Kevin says, I was marginalized and stigmatized for 15 years by the church I was in. I stayed there for my kids that had such good friends. It enhanced and made worse my complex PTSD from childhood. Yeah. Yeah. Let me mention that the church environment, and this is coming from, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, this is coming from, excuse me, this is coming from a mom who is very spiritual. This is coming from a daughter of a mom who's very spiritual, excuse me, and this is coming from a granddaughter of a pastor and a family member to a lot of people in my family who's Christian. So I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. I think that Church is one of the most it can be one of the most toxic environments around. Why? Because it's bringing in a lot of people who have challenges and problems and relationship challenges and have poor boundaries, and sometimes people who are lonely, and sometimes people who like to gossip, and sometimes people who are very manipulative, and sometimes people who need to be a part of a social group of some kind, and they stir trouble because that's what they know to do or they enjoy doing that. Church can sometimes be the most toxic place to go. And it's not supposed to be, but it ends up being that because humans exist there. But it can be one of the most toxic places to be. So, Kevin the Oculus, for you to say that you felt marginalized and stigmatized for 15 years by the church is no shock to me. For so many years, my mom never went to church. She said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to keep reading my Bible. I'm going to keep leading my life as a Christian, but I am not going to go to a church. My mom, she says, I'm done with that because, my mom has gone to several churches over the course of her lifetime. And, one church was better than the other, but there was always that group of toxicity, right? And the harsh judgments and the harsh criticisms. And that's not to say that every church is like that at all. I think church can be very healthy depending on who's in it and who's leading it, right? But it doesn't shock me at all, that you felt stigmatized and marginalized. Now, can you be the victim of the silent treatment in a church environment? 100%, right? Just do something that makes the bishop or the pastor upset. Pastor or bishop may have a very unhealthy relationship with the deacons or the individuals who are up in the pulpit with him or some of the church members. So he may gossip or she may gossip or spread things in the church. And then you go to church on Sunday, you step into that building and you feel something. You feel like you want to cringe or you're cringing. Maybe I should put it that way, because now the church has turned on you, right? Doesn't shock me, Kevin. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but it happens a lot. And the silent treatment does happen. It does happen in the church environment. I've seen it too many times. Main House says frontal lobe activity for the functional magnetic resonance imaging. Yes, sometimes if you are being socially isolated or socially ostracized, there is a lot of frontal lobe. The frontal lobes are behind the forehead, and the frontal lobes helps us with personality development, decision making, impulse control. So the frontal lobes can be activated by feeling socially isolated. It can also be activated when you're in fight or flight mode because you're trying to decide what it is that you need to do, right? So that's what Main House is saying here. Excuse me. B, hello. Did I welcome you? I don't remember. I don't remember every 2 seconds what's going on. So I apologize if I've already welcomed you. But B says, this is exactly what is happening to me. I have so many unanswered questions from my mother's side of the family. I even drive across country to confront one. Yeah, you really want some answers, don't you, B? All I received in return was manipulation. Yeah, it doesn't shock me at all. Happens so often, and I feel like in my work it happens every day. Every day I'm at the office, I see that happening. So I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Let me also add to your comment, B, as I'm thinking that sometimes the silent treatment can pop up in your family when you have family members that don't want to be confronted by you, right? And depending on who that family member is, they can go and gossip and tell other family members who may turn on you as well. So the silent treatment can happen there as well. Yeah, you're welcome, Main House. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mike Smith, and then I'm going to go back to the content, give you guys the other parts of this. Mark, if I can speak, Mike Smith says, when I ask why am I receiving such treatment, I get called crazy or I hear you're just delusional. Right. Because the silent treatment is a form of gaslighting, right? Gaslighting, as you all know, is when you confront somebody with an issue. Hey, I thought maybe you were upset with me. I just want to check in and make sure everything is okay. No, everything is fine. What makes you think that? We've been friends for 20 years, And you may say, well, I just kind of felt something between the two of us. And I thought maybe I offended you. You didn't offend me. Go to work the next day. She doesn't say a word to you, right? So the silent treatment is a form of gaslighting. So Mike Smith, it doesn't shock me. Sometimes you will hear that you're delusional. That's a part of the puzzle, right? It's easier to say you're delusional than it is to just say, I'm giving you the silent treatment. Okay, let me give you the other things here. So, what happens to you? We left off at the individual who's giving you the silent treatment exerts control over you. There's also a piece of this that is dehumanizing. When somebody gives you the silent treatment as a means to fight you, it is dehumanizing, right? I have a heart, I have a mind, I have a soul, and I'm trying to communicate with you, and you're shutting me out. It's dehumanizing. It's saying, I want nothing to do with you. You're going to talk to me on my terms. And when it is used as that kind of tool, that's unhealthy, right? So it's dehumanizing. There's something known as cyber ostracism. You guys have probably never heard that. Cyber ostracism. I mentioned it briefly at the very beginning of this live chat. It is the act of an individual using the silent treatment, but they're doing it in a passive aggressive way on social media. Facebook, the app that I tell all my clients to delete. Cyber ostracism happens on Facebook all the time. You get into a spat with your cousin, you get in a spat with your brother, your mother, your father. What do? They take to Facebook and they start posting things, right? Maybe they post a puzzle about how much better they are off without you, right? Or maybe they post some kind of, I don't know, meme or some kind of photo that shows family members bickering, who knows, right? There's tons of things that a passive aggressive person could do on social media, but cyber ostracism is, I'm going to post this message to get your attention because I know that we're talking about what's going on between the two of us, right? So cyber ostracism. There is also an element of traumatic bonding that is mixed or intermixed with the silent treatment. And here's why. Let's say that you are experiencing an unhealthy trauma bond, right? You're like this with an unhealthy person. The moment that other person utilizes the silent treatment on you, what is going to happen to you? You're going to start self doubting. You're probably going to obsess over what's going on. You're probably going to develop a bunch of questions as to what you did wrong and when, right? And if you try to confront that person that you are in a trauma bond with about feeling like they're giving you the silent treatment, they're going to push you away. They're going to gaslight you. And yes, Mike Smith, they're going to call you delusional, right? So if you're in a trauma bond with someone, the silent treatment can be very, very detrimental, very detrimental. There's also something known as ego depletion, ego depletion. And this is a form of that. It's almost like, here's what it means. Ego depletion means you've put so much energy, so much of your energy, hence the word depletion, so much energy into trying to understand the relationship and what is going on and why you're being given the silent treatment that you exhaust yourself. When you exhaust yourself, you have no energy to then apply it to the things that you need to apply it to. Does that make sense, guys? So if you are receiving the silent treatment and this has been going on for quite some time, it's depleting you of your energy because you're probably going through the experience of wondering what you did wrong, right? Or why you're being treated that way. And extending all of your energy into that, or giving all of your energy to that, I should say, is going to deplete you. And so then you have no more energy to give because now you've been depleted. Okay, I'm just going through my mental bank to make sure I gave you all of them. I think I gave you all of them. This is the silent treatment in a nutshell. It is the psychology of social isolation, and it has a major impact on how you function. Let me go to the chat box, see what you guys are saying, and then we're going to wrap up. Bree, hello and welcome. It's been a while. Glad to see you back. Says, I don't know how to undo the vicious cycle I have been in with family members and the learned self-isolation and silent treatments. It has made it difficult for me to make friends too. Yeah, right. Yes, because two live chats ago where we had a conversation about attachment and personality, we talked about how the family relationship is the most important relationship that there is for a lot of people and for children growing up. So if you've had a very negative family dynamic, it's going to follow you, right? And the development of healthy relationships is going to be detrimental. So it is a vicious cycle. And if you've been, forced to isolate socially, and if you've received the silent treatment from family members, you're probably going to learn some behaviors that are not healthy, right? Not healthy for you at all. And so it is hard to make friends or have relationships when you're in that mindset, if that makes sense. I might come back on at a later time, guys, maybe later this month or next month, and talk about how to get out of this mindset of the silent treatment of social isolation, of self isolation. So stay tuned for that. Yes, live life says, oh my god, that kid is just like me, I just like a ninja. Yeah, me too. Look who's talking, look who's talking. At least I have some flowers going on here and some, shiny earrings, if you will. But yeah, yeah, most days I dress like a ninja to live life. All right, I'm just going through. Deb is talking about her daughter. Blame her, Deb. I don't blame her. I don't. Hoodie 18th, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, you can't convince people who already have their mind made up. Yeah, that's the sad part, right? And try convincing someone who's over the age of 50 because I find it absolutely difficult. When I'm in session, plus my mom's over 50. If I'm in session with someone or I'm talking to my mom and I'm trying to get them to look at things from a different perspective, I find that that is one of the most difficult things because we are stubborn sometimes as human beings. Secondly, we kind of mold to our own way of things. And so it's hard to kind of undo that and unravel that. So you're right. I just wish we could. I wish we could. Nancy R, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back. Says, I feel like I've been silenced my whole life. I used to hear this all the time. There she goes again. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you feel like you've been silenced your whole life, you most likely have been. You most likely have been. Yeah, that's really difficult. SH says silent treatment can be stonewalling. Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's stonewalling. Silent treatment says, I'm putting a stop to this and I'm putting up a brick wall. You're not going to get through it. That's what that means. And I think that's where the concept stonewalling kind of grew out of. It grew out of the concept of the silent treatment, I believe, or passive aggressive behavior. Miss Barb 123, I'm going to say Barb. I feel like that's Barb. Says it's the intention behind the silent treatment. Absolutely. That's what I said at the very beginning of the chat. So glad you brought that back around. She says the silent treatment means be quiet or shutting down is not okay. So be quiet or shutting down is not the same. I agree. So let me go back over that. I botched that up. It's the intention behind the silent treatment. 100% agree. Being quiet or shutting down is not the same. Agree. That is also self preservation. 100% agree. This is a nervous system response. The silent treatment is purposeful to punish. Yes, to punish, to prolong, to minimize, to dehumanize, stonewall, to gaslight. It's all of those very unhealthy communication patterns. Absolutely. I agree. Love that comment. Thank you, Miss Barb. 123. Kevin the Oculus says family disownment. A church you were in could be considered a family too. Absolutely. Very much agree. And sometimes it is. Like when my grandfather was a pastor in his own church, he's been a pastor for over 20 years. When he had his own church, it was a church family. It was a church family. And so you're right. If they disown you or isolate you or give you the silent treatment, it feels like your family's doing something to you. It's painful. It's painful. Hanifa El Amin, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Let Life Love You says, it makes me sad that I don't trust my family emotionally, yet I refuse to go back. People often say, let the past go, and I have. Walking away from my unhealthy family is letting go of my past. Yeah, sometimes you have to. And I hate to be the one to say it because I really love the concept of family. I'm underlying concept of family. I love the concept of family. That doesn't mean that family is the how am I trying to say this? That doesn't mean that I don't see family as a toxic, unhealthy system sometimes. I love the concept of a healthy family, but that doesn't mean that family is healthy. Sometimes family is the group of people that you need to run from, right? Because they know you too well, and they hurt you the most sometimes, right? So I agree with you on that one. Sometimes that is letting go of the past. I'm not going to deal with this side of my family anymore because they are abusive. Yeah. Yes, thank you, main house. I agree. I very much agree. Yep. I put it on the screen for you guys to see it. Caleb Reed, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, how do I change feeling like I have to call my family members and feel pressure and feeling pressure? Mm. Ooh, Caleb Reed, you have the most awesome questions, but I feel like I need more to go on, you know? And I don't like just giving like a half answer, you know, and I feel like I would be. So I'm gonna leave that there. If you want to post in the comment section, please do. I'll answer it. I'm happy to answer it. Hi, Daryl Harris. Wonderful to see you. How are you? Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Okay, I'm just going through looking for comments. Deb, I hope I'm not sick again, okay? Please don't say that. Deb says, I can believe you're sick again. You kind of go 100 miles per hour and play with the door. I know. Yeah, I need to learn something. I'll learn, Deb. John Tracy says, my family of origin was one long silent treatment. No constructive communication. Yeah, absolutely. Once a family folds in on itself and everybody is not communicating correctly, then yes, there's no healthy communication, no constructive criticism, nothing. It's just the painful silent treatment and it becomes family disownment over time. Yeah. Hello, Black girls giving their shift together. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. We're going to sign off here in just a minute. I'm so glad to see all of you on here. It's beautiful to see you guys on here communicating. Sun and Sunflowers, hello and welcome. Thank you for that. Hope you're having a great Saturday. Um, yes, yes, yes. Abraham Maslow. So, yes, main house. Abraham is correct. Maslow is not. Maslow would be Maslow. Abraham Maslow. And he was the brains behind the hierarchy of needs, the hierarchy of needs. So if you're going to Google that, you want to Google Abraham Maslow, hierarchy of needs. I'll post something in the description box for you as well. Okay, I'm just looking, just looking. Thank you, Live Life. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, such a great tool to utilize for healing. Yes, it is. If you journal around each area as it relates to your childhood, painful, but worth it. Very much agree. So, and I agree with this. I use this with my clients, primarily my younger clients in the office. You can actually draw Maslow's hierarchy of needs, go ahead and list those 5 different levels of need, and ask yourself at each level, am I getting this? Am I getting my physical needs met? Am I getting love and belonging met? Am I getting my safety needs met? And if not, why? What needs to change or shift in my life? That's a very, very therapeutic question to ask yourself. Excuse me. Okay, looking. I'm just looking. Hoodie 18th says self-actualization. Basically, you probably know what the idea is of it. I'm just going to highlight this for those who don't. Self-actualization is number 5 and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And number 5 says this to us. We have to be able to feed our brain, our spirit, our existential questions have to be answered or they need to be explored. We have to have a higher order of thinking, a very highly cognitive state of existing in the world, right? Self actualization is also problem solving and really processing what's going on in your world. And so we kind of we have to have that. 2 live chats ago when we talked about attachment, I mentioned that we kind of have this inquisitive piece of ourselves where we need to know what's going on with us, what's going on in my heart, what's going on in my mind, what is my soul telling me, right? Why is my mind or my heart leading me this way? What's going on that I feel like I need to go this way? So we have like this internal need to ask those questions and to get those questions answered. And self actualization is what Maslow is saying is an important part of the whole process of who we are. I hope that made sense. Okay, let me keep going, guys. And let me go through this chat box a little bit longer, and then we're gonna go ahead and sign off for the night. I just want to make sure I haven't missed any of you. Yeah, I'm gonna put you up here, Miss BRB123. I'm gonna put you up here just so everyone can see that we're saying the same thing. Great minds think alike. Jessica says, Tamara, you have so much energy and so giving to us all. I hope you take time for yourself. Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully all the energy is not the caffeine because I'm gonna give you a joke, okay? And this really happened earlier. I thought I was putting in my tea 2 herbal tea bags, okay? I totally forgot that my green tea had caffeine. So I put 3 tea bags with caffeine in my cup. So hopefully it's not the caffeine, Deb. I really hope it's not because I feel like I'm speeding. It's probably the caffeine. I probably should have poured this out and just got a whole new cup of tea. Oh man, if you lived in my life, you'd ask me how I survived to make it over the age of 35. Just a joke for you guys. Caleb Reed says, love this call. My anxiety is starting to go away. Yeah, good for you. That's really good. Yeah. Mike Smith says, these toxic family members and peers make you feel like you don't even exist. Absolutely. That's the whole purpose of the silent treatment, right? They know what they're doing. They get it. Dragonfly Re 3, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says finally made it to one of these streams. I'm so glad to have you. Glad to have you. Okay, guys. Uh Thanks, Caleb Reed. Caleb Reed says, I love how you don't make people feel invalidated. Thank you so much for that. Not to talk about myself, but I just want to throw this in here that my goal every live chat, every family session, every individual session is to validate you, but then also give you some research and some knowledge behind that validation, right? Because if I validate you and there's no real knowledge to that, right? You're not going to, how am I helping, right? So I'm so glad you feel validated. And I hope that I'm giving you the information that you need as well. So I'm going to read George Dragonfly Re 3. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Says, we don't communicate at all. She's talking about her family. Here's the beginning of that. She says, me and my brother have to share a house since our mother left it to us both after she died. And his wife lives with us. Oh my goodness. And I'm sorry for your loss. That's a tough loss indeed. But this is also a tough dynamic. She goes on to say, we don't communicate at all because we don't get along. And I avoid him as much as possible because of my fear of him. My God, that's such a complicated dynamic. I'm sorry that you have to go through that. I'm sure the silent treatment is utilized between the two of you too. Adrian Paul, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says looking for a support group in the Metro Atlanta area. Anyone here interested in connecting with me? Yep. Mhm. Yep, they'll probably I don't know, you'll probably get a few people say, "Yeah, tell me where you wanna connect." Yeah, B says it's psychological warfare and it sucks. I think since the social media came into our lives, this is what it has created. I don't know, just a thought. No, I think it's good. I think you're talking about cyber ostracism. And it is. Once social media came into our world, it gave people another tool to use, right? They can go on Facebook and Snapchat and treat you like you don't exist. Shanice, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. We're going to sign off here in literally 2 minutes. I feel like I've said this all night. Says I'm 18 and I'm going through this with my grandma. It makes me feel super alone. Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very hard to deal with. I'm sorry you're going through that. Sunkissed dark and lovely, or dark and dainty. Oh my God, dark and lovely. Did I just say that? Dark and dainty. Oh, one. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Hello to you. Hello. Glad to see you. All right. Let's see. I see a new face. Lee Mick Chad Swagger. I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says, I'm going through this group triangulation stonewalling at present. My brother is the savior. Yeah, the rescuer. This topic is so relevant to me. I don't know how to heal from this. Yeah, it's really tough to heal from being disowned or being put in a position of family estrangement. I will try to post some videos I've done in the past where I give you guys some tips on how to manage this dynamic. Betsy, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says, hey, hi everyone. Love your chats, Tamara. Thank you so much. So helpful. You're welcome and thank you for letting me know. I love that. That's good to know. All right, guys. I let's sign off. Let's sign off because we can just keep talking and let's sign off. Thank you so much for being with me in tonight's long chat. I think it was a little bit over an hour. I'm gonna leave this up. I do have a video for you next Saturday. I'll do a live chat on Friday and then a video. I'm actually going to be in the DC area for a conference. So I'm going to be picking up a lot of live chat stuff for you and I'm going to post it and I'm going to do a live chat in DC. So stay tuned for that for next Friday and then I'm going to do a video for you guys next Saturday. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you all really soon. Bye-bye.